2023 has given us tons of great albums. How does a music fan even begin to try to pick their favorites and then attempt to rank them? Well, I did, and let me tell you what I came up with. Hi, music fans. I'm Paul Crayson, and you're watching Music Mentions. I've been looking forward to this video since I started this channel a few months ago. I've also been dreading it, to be absolutely honest. I've listened to so much great music this year that the hardest thing about doing a video like this was whittling down that list to only 20. But the ranking was not easy either. However, I did manage to dive in and I got it finally done, and now I get to share this list with you, my viewers. First, a little bit of context. I came up with this list by reviewing the albums I tagged as favorite in Qobuz, the music streaming platform I use and I prefer. I've also not restricted the albums to just studio albums. I've included a few exceptional live albums that were released in 2023 as well. These are all albums that I found myself returning to frequently. They impressed me on different levels, and I played them based on my varying moods. And I think in this regard, I'm no different than probably most of you watching this video. Sometimes you want to rock, and sometimes you want to chill, while other times you may want to challenge yourself with maybe some more difficult music, and some other times you might just want something familiar and fun. Unlike many music channels and music sites, I really don't care about making certain artists or labels happy by including them on my list, because I don't have any obligations to them, nor do I have any established personal relationships. And, those type of relationships that may sway me to include them on the list. This is solely my list as an avid music listener and a fan. I'll be counting down from 20 to number 1. Let's dive in, shall we? Album number 20, Gizmo by Tanuka-chan. This was released in March, and this is one of 2 albums on my list that I would classify as shoegaze. I love me some good shoegaze. Lots of fuzzy guitar effects creating washes and waves of sound to get lost in. But this album's sound is a little less thick and more inviting than something like My Bloody Valentine, and its melodies are more exposed. They're more obvious. We also get synths and the absolutely beautiful, ethereal, and floating voice of Hannah Van Loon. Now, this is her second album under the name of Tanuka-chan, and it captured my attention and held it this year. It's very short, at just under a half an hour, but it's perfect for repeat headphone listening on a rainy day. Album number 19, Chris Black, Change My Life by Portugal The Man. These guys are now going on something like 20 years. I've been a fan for many years, and I think their 2013's Evil Friends is a modern-day masterpiece, frankly. They've changed their sound quite a bit over the years and are a little bit hard to classify, but this is probably the most poppy album on my list. But man, do I really dig it. It was released in June, and the recording is exceptional, with many interesting instrumental arrangements and effects, and there's a lot of sticky melodies throughout this one. It's fun, and it's smart, and it's a little bit quirky. It's an album I've really grown to love with repeated listenings. Check out the song Summer of Love, which I think is one of the best they've ever done. Album number 18, Cartwheel by Hotline TNT. This is the second shoegaze record on this list. Now, Hotline is basically a one-man show, at least for this recording. This man's name is Will Anderson, and he played all the instruments. It's his second album as Hotline TNT, and it was released in November on Jack White's Third Man Records label. This is more dense than Gizmo and is closer to the sound of My Bloody Valentine. It sounds loud even at low volumes, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be played loud. It most certainly should. The strength of the songs revealed themselves, like many initially challenging albums, upon repeated listenings. It's like a closed flower that slowly opens to display its beauty. Trust the process here. Album number 17, The Window by Ratboys. This is the fifth album by the Chicago band, and it was released in August. I describe this as indie rock. Julia Steiner is the leader and the singer of this band, and this was one that really kind of surprised me, as I'd never listened to this band before this album. I think it would have been comfortable in the early grunge era 90s. The songwriting and Julia's voice are just great. It's got a dynamic quality ranging from rockers to quieter, almost Americana, and it's accessible from the first listen. Check this one out. It may surprise you the way it did me. Album number 16, Hackney Diamonds by the Rolling Stones. Speaking of surprises, this has to be the biggest of the year. This was released in October, and it's a true miracle. Mick, Keith, Ronnie, they're all in their late 70s or early 80s, and they got together with this uber producer of the day named Andrew Watt. And then on top of that, they had legends like Paul McCartney, Elton John, Stevie Wonder, and Lady Gaga to create the best Stones album, I think, since Tattoo You. I was skeptical, to say the least, that it would be any good at all, but boy, was I wrong. It rocks, it's fun, and Mick's pipes are in marvelous form. Now, it doesn't compete with the Stones classics from the late 60s and early 70s, but it sure as hell stands out from what passes as rock albums in the early 2020s. Album number 15, 72 Seasons by Metallica. April brought us an album from another legendary band. Similar to the Stones, I didn't expect much from this one, since Metallica's recent releases haven't really been exceptional since probably the Black Album. Sure, there have been some bright spots with some good songs along the way, but no records that were really solid from front to back. Then 72 Seasons dropped on us. It's dark, it's relentless, and it harkens back to their thrashy early years with those killer riffs and grooves. This album pummels, but in a good way. They sound reinvigorated and like they care again, and it comes through on this release. Album number 14, In Time's New Roman by Queens of the Stone Age, one of the great American rock bands. Queens has released a mature and endlessly interesting album with In Time's New Roman. Josh Homme went through some dark years prior to this one coming out, and that's reflected in this album's almost angry and restless mood. The recording is fantastic. Josh's singing comes from a very deep and personal place, and the guitars sound better than ever with this biting and angular kind of attack. What's not to love? Album number 13, I.O. by Peter Gabriel. This was a December release that unfortunately didn't make a lot of year-end best-of lists, since these major music sites all tried to get a jump on their year-end lists by releasing them soon after Halloween. Heads up, fellas, great music comes out in November and December too. I got into Gabriel early on, but lost interest somewhat after So. Well, I'm happy to report that the enigma that is Peter Gabriel has released an album that's worthy of his earlier solo legacy. It's got some great songs on it, even though the lyrics sometimes aren't the strongest. Peter's vocals, however, are superb. Also, it is really two albums in one, but the two share the same songs in common. There's a bright side mix, and then there's a dark side mix, each employing two different producers. It's an experiment that I think really pays off. Welcome back to Peter Gabriel. Album number 12, Faces from the Masquerade by Carseat Headrest. This was also a December release, and this is the first live album on my best of list. If you've never heard of this band, it's the brainchild of a guy, the singer-songwriter named Will Toledo, and it could be classified as indie or alternative rock. This was recorded on a post-pandemic tour that they did in 2022 in Brooklyn, New York, over a 3-night run. And it's their second live album, actually. Carseat has turned into quite the effective live outfit, and you hear it on this release. It's very dynamic, but there are some tunes in here that are rockers. This is introspective, personal music. It's really played with a lot of passion, a lot of power. Listen to the guitar on this record. Simply outstanding, and their fans likewise passionate, as you can hear when they're singing along, from the audience. I may be doing a deep dive video review of this one in the future. We'll see. Album number 11, MMJ Live, Volume 3, Bonnaroo 2004 by My Morning Jacket. This was released in June, and this is the second live album on this list. This is the third volume of their official MMJ Live series. I've talked about this band in previous videos. It's really one of the finest live American bands I think there is. This captures the band before they were really well known, and this was at Tennessee's Bonnaroo Festival all the way back in 2004. It's an energetic, it's a thrilling performance of some of their classic earlier tunes. They've got a blend of rock, folk, blues, and psychedelia, and it sounds spectacular on this really well-recorded release. Album number 10, The Ballad of Darren by Blur. This album by the great Blur was released in July. It still retains their classic Blur sound, but there's a sense of melancholy and almost reflection about it too. It's age-appropriate Blur and a little bit more mature sounding. The recording is beautifully done. There's a lot going on that reveals itself with repeated listenings. I kind of lost interest in Blur when they had that massive American breakthrough. It was a self-released album back in 1997. But this one grabbed a hold of me this year. It's dynamic, it has some great songs, and Damon Albarn has rarely been in better voice. It's an essential listen from this year. Now, Albarn has indicated that Blur, at least for now, has been put aside while he focuses on some other projects. If this ends up being their final studio album, they couldn't have gone out on a higher note. Album number 9, Return to Carnegie Hall by Ryan Adams. This is the third live recording on this list. This is the second of 2 Carnegie Hall releases that Ryan Adams has issued, and it came out in August and was produced by the great Don Was. This was recorded on his 2022 acoustic tour after his return to live performances following his, in my opinion, overly harsh cancellation by the mainstream music press regarding accusations of psychological manipulation by the likes of Mandy Moore and Phoebe Bridgers. I won't retread that drama here because it doesn't need any more oxygen. All I'll say is that it's great to have Ryan back, sober, and sounding better and stronger than ever. This is Ryan on acoustic guitar and sometimes piano in front of a large, loving, and respectful audience, playing and singing brilliantly for about 2 hours. He is truly an amazing songwriter, musician, and singer, and that's something that even the New York Times can't kill. Album number 8, The Death of Randy Fitzsimmons by the Hives. This was also an August release by this wonderful Swedish punk/rock band, the Hives, and it was really kind of like a shot of adrenaline to the heart this year. Their impeccable playing, there's this relentless energy and really a unique sense of humor, and they stood way out from the crowd because of that. This is high octane, violate the speed limit rock and roll that was recorded perfectly and just explodes in your ears. It demands that you crank the volume and dance around your room like an idiot. Album number 7, Nebworth 22 by Liam Gallagher. This is the 4th and final live album on my list. Another August release and another reminder that Liam Gallagher is one of the best rock singers England has ever produced. The songs were selected from performances over 2 days back in 22 in front of about 85,000 adoring fans each night. There are 9 classic Oasis tunes and 7 great songs from Liam's 3 solo UK number 1 albums. Liam's voice is top-notch. So a really well-oiled, powerful band that's backing him. We also get a choir. What's truly unique about this album is that the sense of scale and community and energy really comes through in the recording. You can hear the passion with which Liam sings as he feeds off the energy of the crowd. By the way, there was a film documentary about these shows that provides some great context for this album. Check that out on Paramount Plus, where I think it's currently streaming. Album number 6, Strays by Margot Price. Released back in January, this album was another one that kind of snuck up on me. Margot is usually classified as a country or Americana artist, but on this album, she's closer to being something like a thoughtful Sheryl Crow rather than a throwaway contemporary country like Kelly Clarkson. She's got a beautifully expressive voice, and her songwriting is brilliant here. Check out the songs County Road and Hell in the Heartland, 2 of the best songs I've heard all year. This is an album I've returned to many times since it's dropped, and that's usually a good sign for me. It didn't really start sinking in as really something special until sometime this summer. It's what I would call a creeper that slowly lodges into your brain with each listening. It's dynamic, it's melodic, and it's unforgettable. Album number 5, Pretty Vicious by the Struts. This was released in November, and this album from these retro Brits is just pure rock and roll, fist in the air joy. They're big, hooky, and memorable choruses that take the center stage. If you don't like earworms, steer clear from this one, because these are dinosaur-sized earworms. Luke Spiller, the lead singer, he channels his inner Freddie Mercury and Mick Jagger to spectacular effect, while the band rocks like it was the 70s. There are also many times when you've been transported back to the better hair metal bands of the 80s. The Struts wear their influences on their sleeves and get away with it. I'm a sucker for music that tries to get to the fun part of rock and roll, and this one fit that bill for me this year. I had a lot of fun with this album. Album number 4, Did You Know That There's a Tunnel Under Ocean Boulevard by Lana Del Rey. We got this album from Lana back in March. It's a big, sprawling release that took me many listens to absorb. I jumped aboard the Lana train with Ultraviolence back in 2014 after initially kind of dismissing her as another disposable and manufactured next big thing kind of forced on us by a cabal of plastic record executives. I was wrong. I was very wrong. She's shown herself to be in a category all her own. This is just Lana music for me now. With a one-of-a-kind voice and a fuck you, I'll do what I want attitude, she hooked me. This album just continues a string of wonderful records and is one that I listen to frequently over the year. It creates a mood, a space that I've found a lot of comfort in during a difficult personal year. With all that said, that stupid Judah Smith interlude track really should have been left off the album, but I'll allow Lana that self-indulgence this one time since the rest of the album is top-tier stuff. Album number 3, Cousin by Wilco. Here's another American institution, and they released this spectacular 13th album in September. It's sometimes thick and challenging, yet it's still accessible. I'm starting to think of Cousin as kind of the more tame cousin of Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, their masterpiece. These songs are uniquely Wilco. There are interesting sounds and textures that paint across what are basically folk songs at the core, but folk songs with some allowance to deviate from typical folk structures. I'm a big fan of Wilco, and this album has really proved its mettle over the last few months as one of the band's finest. My recommendation is to turn the lights off, relax in a comfortable chair, and play this album through the best headphones you have. It'll take you places if you let it. Album number 2, Council Skies by Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds. Released in June, this is Noel's 4th full solo studio album, and it seems that Noel has been on a search for his own musical path since he disbanded Oasis back in 2009, including forays into dance music and electronica. Although the first 3 solo albums all have their particular strengths, it's clear that the musical vision he's been pursuing since the end of Oasis is most fully realized with Council Skies. This is Noel doing what he does best, writing brilliant songs with beautiful melodies to get lost in. It's a mature effort that channels his inner Burt Bacharach. It marries it to his these sumptuous strings and bathes it all in rich melodies and hope. It's another album for the headphones and one to put on when you feel the pressures and challenges of the world beating down on you. It's Noel's finest solo release. By the way, word on the street is that Noel is going back into the studio in January to work on the next one. And now album number 1, Weather Vanes from Jason Isbell and the 400 Unit. This was another June release. There was no other album that I returned to more this year than Weather Vanes. It's so rich in dynamics, in storytelling, and great musicianship. It was a no-brainer for me to bestow the top position on this list to this masterpiece. Jason Isbell has become one of the premier songwriters of this century, and just when you think he couldn't improve anymore, he releases this melodic, powerful, and really adult album upon the world. It's a masterclass in every way, and it's a record that cuts through the limitations of genre to reveal core truths about the human condition. If you haven't listened to this one yet, give it a few spins, and then listen to it while closely reading and thinking about the lyrics. Call it Americana, call it alt country, or call it rock. I call it magnificent. So there you have it, my picks for the best of 2023. There were many releases that I considered for this list that didn't quite make the cut, but there were great listens nonetheless. Here are just 5 honorable mention albums in no particular order that I would encourage you guys to check out. Everything is Alive by Slowdive. Categorized as shoegaze, this is a long-running band that has released a shoegaze album for people that don't like shoegaze. It's truly stunning. Juliana Hatfield sings Yello by Juliana Hatfield. This is the legendary indie alternative artist channeling some great ELO songs through her personal musical filter. And it's creating a tribute album that not only honors the originals, but makes them feel intimate and fresh. Back to Moon Beach by Kurt Weill. Nothing sounds like Kurt Weill music. It's floaty, hypnotic, and carefree all at the same time. It creates this warm sonic canvas you can just get lost in. It's a wonderful chill-out album. Formentera 2 by Metric. Another superb release by Metric. You can dance to it, vibe to it, or just marvel at their particular mix of guitar, bass, drums, and synths. It's also one of the best recorded albums I've heard this year. and The Wind, Live and Loose by MJ Lenderman. This is another live release by this up-and-coming indie North Carolina singer-songwriter, guitarist. And he's kind of an amalgamation, I think, of Neil Young, Lou Reed, Sonic Youth. I'll even throw in the occasional Kurt Cobain and early Teenage Fan Club in there, too. By the way, he's the guitarist for the band Wednesday that had also a notable album this year. Don't let this live one fly under your radar. A couple of final things. I did some deep dive reviews on my channel of several of the albums I mentioned today, including the Stones, Struts, Juliana Hatfield, Noel Gallagher, Wilco, and Jason Isbell. Check those out for more gory details about these amazing albums. Also, this is just my list, and I imagine your best of lists are probably quite different. Let me know in the comments what really stuck out for you this year. I'm always on the lookout for great listens. Anyway, thanks everybody. I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you enjoyed my 2023 year-end list. It seems like everyone is coming out with these, and there's a reason for that. They are kind of fun, and I hope this one inspires some great comments down below, and maybe a little controversy. We'll see. Anyway, thanks again. Please hit a like, hit the subscribe, hit the notifications. I'll see you guys next time.